They're calling it the Fantano double feature. Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. And as you guys know, on this channel, I'm not the strongest or most popular film reviewer out there today. I'm not really known for my film takes. Yes, it is true. But you know what? I don't think I should be written off entirely just because I have a few movie takes that you guys disagree with, just because I mostly talk about music. In fact, I was so upset that you guys don't take anything I say about film seriously that I turned around and decided to go be in two movies just because I am so movie. Which leads me to the premise of this video, the two films whose posters you see right here that I am in right now, which when I agreed to do little cameo type participation bits in these films where I literally just shot myself right here in that chair in that corner. Yeah, I had no idea that these films would be getting wider releases pretty much during the same month in 2026. So yes, for a very limited time, like you could pretty much hit the multiplex and see two movies I'm in a day. And again, given that I was featured in both of these movies, I'm not expecting you guys to see anything I'm saying here is like completely unbiased. But I still thought it would be fun to come on here and give some thoughts about both of these films because I do think they are interesting and genuinely worth your time. All right, we got a little green back there for Brat for the moment. Let's go. So yeah, the first of the two movies I'm talking about here is this new Charli XCX film, The Moment, which is directed by Aiden Zamiri, whose work I will admit I am not well versed in. However, Charli's work I am well versed in. And The Moment is essentially this little mockumentary film throwing us into the thick of Brat's success. And we essentially get to watch Charli and people on her team try to navigate the madness of that as she ultimately ends up reaching a place where she kind of compromises her vision. There's almost like this, I'll say Avril Lavigne type of rebranding to her image, which is very funny if you kind of know anything about her vibe, her art style. While there are a lot of elements of reality to what is happening in the moment, Charli and the writers of this film also try to play with, like, you know, a lot of what ifs, play out crazy scenarios. Like, what if there was this kind of fall from grace that happened due to this bank having to default due to a commercial tie-in that she agreed to do with them. I will say, as a Charli fan, it is pretty entertaining, and there's a lot of like good quality inside humor that if you were like, you know, deep in the thick of the Brat trenches, enjoying the album, enjoying the dialogue, and if you were a Charli fan that like really loved her work up until this point and got to see Brat like really grow into the phenomenon that it was before it even came out. I don't know if this is going to be your favorite movie ever, but you will get a lot out of it. There's also a lot of like funny dialogue bits between Charli and other people in the film who are, you know, maybe at like certain behind the scenes parts or at parties where they're having these like, you know, I'll say snarky, weird little LA type back and forths where everybody's talking like this and nobody's saying anything critical to anybody outright, but every single statement that is made and is like put out there is like filled with daggers and some kind of like negative implication or insult. Nobody's saying what they actually think or feel. Everybody's like dancing around the actual thing that they want or that they're interested in. And it's all just like, it's the kind of dialogue that makes my skin crawl. Not in a way that makes me like hate the movie. It's just like a very accurate depiction of the types of back and forth that, you know, often happen in the kinds of entertainment circles that this movie is supposed to be kind of like lampooning and making fun of. And look, I will say this movie isn't just merely silly, playful, dumb Charli XCX fan service. Like, there are some genuine points being made here about fame and the entertainment industry, selling out, losing control of your vision, creating a thing that becomes so big and so popular and so huge that it almost grows beyond you and you can't fully control it anymore. It sort of becomes its own like entity. And there's a lot about this film that deals in insecurity because Charli does come across in this movie like a very self-aware pop star. She knows that her place in the mainstream is very unlikely and very unique, and that has its upsides, but clearly in this movie, she feels the downsides to that as well. And despite having just reached this really high peak of success with this new album, also has these lingering fears and feelings of, oh, will I be phased out? Am I irrelevant? Am I reaching a point where I should be kind of like, turning things down and going in other directions? These are all super valid questions, super valid feelings. I'm glad that they were addressed and they were explored in the movie through a lot of good dialogue, through a lot of great mockumentary style camera work, through a lot of funny back and forths. I guess if I do have a problem with the moment, though, it's that the stakes never really feel all that high at any point in the movie. Like there's not really anything about the lessons that are learned that feel super, I don't know, dire or impactful when certain things do eventually come to pass. Like it's all just kind of whatever at the end of the day. And like, I don't know, we'll just move on to the next album cycle down the road. And if there's anything to be salvaged out of this, we'll do it then, which I suppose is a way to look at things. But I mean, sometimes mistakes that you make in your career can have irreparable damage to your reputation. People in my comments today bring up reviews and opinions that I've had that I said 10 years ago. I don't know, digital footprints are a real thing, which the movie doesn't really seem to take all that seriously, but I still did think overall this was a pretty decent movie. And if you were at all entertained by, what Brat offered, by what Charli offered in the midst of that album cycle, I do think you will get something out of this movie. There's even a touching monologue from Charli in the last leg of the thing that I think played over really well. The acting across the movie was surprisingly good. Even Kylie Jenner was incorporated really well. Again, do I think the movie's key points could have been leaned into a little bit harder or, more could have been done to make the audience like really feel like it was important that these realizations be had? Sure. Could the what ifs of Brat in this alternate universe been a little bit crazier given that we are playing with a fictionalized narrative here? Yeah, sure. And could that Anthony Fantano guy have gotten a little bit more screen time? Yeah, that as well. But still, again, I was entertained by this, and considering that like the bar for this kind of thing as of late is like, the new Weekend movie, for example, and that is handily like one of the worst things I've seen so far in the 2020s. Charli pretty much passed with flying colors on this one, or at least, just flying Brat green. Okay, now I want to talk about this other movie that I was in, Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, which is this new film rooted in Toronto, masterminded by director Matt Johnson, Jay McCarroll as well, composer, multi-talented creators whose backstory I'm not going to bore you with in this video. But I've been a fan of these guys for years, dating way back to their Vice show, which obviously is now canceled. I and many fans of the Nirvana, the band, the show were very sad to sort of see it over. But I was genuinely enjoying Matt's directorial work in the wake of, that franchise being sort of put out to pasture for the time that it was. Loved the Blackberry movie he dropped back in 2023. I believe it was a little before that I started following Jay McCarroll and just sort of like, trying to keep on top of whatever these guys were, doing beyond Nirvana, the band. And then interestingly enough, like I get this reach out one day to shoot a little bit of footage in my review corner over here for a potential Nirvana the band project movie where I'm like reviewing this old song of Jay's in this potential alternate universe where he becomes like a successful musician, which if you know about the, backstory, the general plot of Nirvana the band, like you kind of get how funny of a premise that is. Now, when I was asked to shoot this footage, I didn't know that this was going to like involve time travel or any of the madness that was in the film. I just sort of shot it, There was some extra footage, just like a bunch of me talking about like, the song and everything. And hilariously enough, just like the moment, this movie over here is also shot in kind of like a mockumentary style. So I was kind of asked to do much the same thing in two different contexts. Like, oh, something is happening. We need some kind of sign in the greater world that this is having some kind of like impact, or this is meaning something in the wider world of music. What are we going to use to symbolize that? Oh, could we have Anthony Fantano commenting on it? Anyway, it was very funny to sort of like see this clip that I shot incorporated in that way, and also in the Charlie movie as well. I mean, look, in defense of both of these films, I could have very much not been incorporated at all, and both movies would be pretty much the same and would have been sort of like, making the same points that they were. I'm just flattered to have been included in any capacity. Anyway, enough about my specific participation. Look, I will say this. If you're a fan of comedies, of buddy comedies, of mockumentary style anything, if you like spoof and satirical humor that does very sort of like witty plays on various pop culture franchises from 80s, 90s, 2000s, you're gonna get a lot out of this movie. It is very absurd. It is very hilarious. It is just so insane and over the top. Not only are Matt and Jay really like up to their old tricks again, and their comedic dynamic and their ability to bounce off of each other and improv together. They just haven't missed a beat in all of these years of having not done Nirvana, the band, the show. But also like, the VFX team and the editors are really like, the true gods of this thing, because there's so many spots throughout the film where you're just going to be wondering, how did they do that? How did they do that? This is insane. How did they do that? Like, there's so much of the zaniness and the insanity of what they're doing that looks totally and completely real, that you just can't believe your eyes. And of course, again, it's a comedy film, it's a fictionalized narrative, it's a mockumentary. None of it is like 100% real, but it all looks real enough to sort of like, make you wonder how much of what you're seeing is actually going on to some degree. I mean, there's certainly enough people sort of out and about turning toward what Matt and Jay are doing at any given moment and are having their attention grabbed too. Plus, Matt and Jay continue to ingeniously find ways to incorporate real life events and occurrences into their work to bring elements of reality to it. Like there's one bit where they kind of like crashed Drake's mansion, back around when the beef with Kendrick was going on, to sort of shoot some footage there and grab some like, the news broadcast footage to sort of like, bring that into the movie to add more credibility to a particular, storyline bit in the film. Again, it really is one of the best comedies I think that we are going to see in the 2020s, hands down, and brings some really much needed shakeups to some pretty tried and true tropes and comedic genres and styles in film. And while I may not know much about movies, that is true. I know this one's a damn banger, and you should see it, as well as The Moment. All right, thank you guys for watching. You're the best. Let me know what you thought about either of these films. If you have actually seen them, down in the comments. I appreciate you greatly. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up, or a link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano movie review forever.